Hi, I made this video about 2 years ago now to try and explain how I go about trying to produce a detail or what my thought process is. So I'm going to try and post-rationalize it and think about what I was actually doing at the time and try and make sense of it. So I'll try and kind of walk you through to give you an idea of what I was thinking. So when I'm starting to draw these things out, and I would do most details the same way, whether I do it in a computer or not. I usually have a kind of rough outline. So for this, I've got a pencil. I'm kind of sketching out rough shapes. I'm thinking about an eaves detail projecting out, main structure in relationship to the wall. So I'm sort of laying out the basic pieces at this stage, trying to say, well, I think there's going to be a nice thin edge to this roof. Try and pull the insulation back a little bit so that if you're at ground level, you're not looking up at something that's very kind of chunky, and trying to think about where the main level of structure is. So at that point, I'm thinking, well, maybe it might be quite nice to pull this edge of this roof joist back and taper it to the outside. Start to sketch in things like, the position of the window, allowing a little bit there for play. The lines of the glass coming down, and a lot of this is superfluous stuff. It's sort of sketching around while I'm thinking. I'm thinking about the face that I might be able to see from the outside, and how that window that I've got is fixed in. And at this point, my mind's obviously thinking that the roof joist comes out and comes over the top of the window, and then there's some sort of framing and facing to hide that junction from the inside. So a bit of plasterboard with some insulation behind it, which then continues down to give you the thickness of the wall. And then your mind wanders and you start drawing in the bottom of the window and thinking about where the timber kit might be in the relationship for the wall underneath. There's a wee sill getting drawn in, so I'm obviously thinking that this is going to be a clad building, timber clad or something like that. And slowly, as you kind of work your way through the detail, things become more real. You start to adapt some lines to become firmer than others. You start to think about where elements of structure got to be, where there's some construction is going to be kind of placed into it. So that's my kind of rough detail, and obviously move to a pen to try and firm things up, but pen's rubbish. Chuck away, get another one. And when you move into kind of firming things up, you're really just trying to confirm the lines that you've drawn before. And some things you're drawing, you don't actually need to draw, but the period of time that you're drawing them for just helps you think about them. So that type of window there is a composite window. It's got a timber frame on the inside, and the bit that holds the glass is usually a aluminium frame, and they usually have a little packer underneath. So whatever size you have for your window, you always make the opening about 20 millimeters bigger so that it can actually maneuver the window in, and that accounts for a bit of error. And that packer's a useful thing for fixing a windowsill too. It's underneath the window. We can then protect the construction underneath that. And underneath that point, you would usually take your breather membrane. So that's what I'm dashing in at that point, and filling in a little bit of cladding to the front, which sits behind the sill. And there's a breather membrane on the outside. I've missed out the sheathing. I should have put that in. So there's mistakes that happen all the way through, but this isn't a CAD drawing. This is still a sketch to just try and get the idea that these components are going to come together and become a construction. So there's my window lines drawn in. Now this is at real speed. I haven't slowed this down. That is actually how slow I draw. And I think one of the things that maybe you need to practice, and this is from sitting down with a lot of students, is you expect to sketch things very quickly. The idea isn't going to move from your mind. You're not drawing from reality. It's not life drawing. You can actually take a little bit of time to make sure the lines are correct for you. So I'm filling in the back there, adding a service void, and that line is projected from above, and do a similar thing to the window up at the top. Try and fill in a little bit of detail just to satisfy myself that I know what the window's going to look like. I haven't measured anything for this drawing. It's all just kind of rough sizes from knowing how big a piece of timber might be and how big its neighbour might be in comparison. So at that point I'm thinking about the packer on top of the window. So this is the other side of that 20mm, and there's a little gap that gives it a wee bit of space. But now I've discovered this point when I draw this thing in here, I start to think, I haven't got any structure over the window. I can't just rest the joist on top of the window. So that's a mistake from my sketch. I'll need to put something in there. So what I think is, well, I can't have my joist going all the way out. I'm going to have a piece of steel so that I can support the roof without pressing down on my my window frame. Windows aren't strong enough to take that, so you need some sort of structure over the top. So I've got a steel beam there, a fill in, and something along the back of it, because I'm now going to have to cut my joist. So rather than extending outwards, the joist is going to stop at the beam. It's not going to be the same piece of timber from the inside to the outside. And the normal way to do that is to pack the steel beam. So you would put a piece of timber into the steel, bolt it through, and that would allow you to put a joist hanger in place. The joist hangers, you've probably seen them, come across them. It's a preformed metal pocket that you can fix to a piece of timber, and that then takes your joist. So there's our structure with our main roof joist into it. And now starting to think, and I think it runs off the page here a wee bit, but starting to think we need a fall to this roof, and most roofs have a fall, and there's a couple of ways we can do that. Normal way is to get a piece of timber that we cut diagonally, and that then creates a fall, and we would put that on top of the joist, and that creates, it's a thing called firring, F-I-R-R-I-N-G, and that allows us to create the fall, and then we would put a deck on that. So to the outside, I still want my sort of thin edge, or this projection coming out to a very thin eaves, but I need to support that now because my joist now doesn't go all the way out. So I'm kind of fiddling around here trying to think about what to do, so I draw something else. I'm sticking in a bit of insulation, and the line that I'm drawing up there is just the thickness of the insulation, and there's a kind of timber stop at the end of the insulation. So that's the board. I'm imagining a piece of plywood or something, and then there's a very thin angle comes out to there, which I think at this stage I'm thinking would be still a piece of timber, and then it's got a bit of plywood sitting on top. So that gives us our thin edge with the projecting eaves. Back to drawing the insulation, because I'm obviously still trying to think about it, firm up a few lines. Put in the deck, which is usually plywood, WBP plywood, and that sits on top of the furring. And I jump back down here and think, well, I don't really want to see that little gap at the back of the window, and I don't want to see my joist hanger, but I'd quite like to be able to see the roof joist, so I need to hide that junction. So I stick a ceiling in at the top up there, and think about a wee plasterboard face, and I think I've realised that at that point it's maybe not going to line through. So I think, okay, well, advantage there is I can put a blind into there. I can kind of hide all of that. I can line that bit through with a piece of plasterboard and have a trim against the window. And it makes a wee pocket for putting this blind. And because we've got a bit of kind of exposed structure there, we put a bit of insulation in there. So back to thinking about the outside here. I think, well, I don't want to see the steel beam from the outside or the timber packer, so I need some sort of flashing, something to look at from the outside, and that's then going to return back down and meet that little trip. And things like hatching in insulation, which is what I'm doing in the roof just now, are kind of time wasters. You know, it's not fundamental. I know there's insulation there. I don't have to think about it. But while I'm drawing that, I'm thinking about other things. I'm thinking about where the membrane's going to go, how it's going to wrap round, form a trim there. So that's probably a single ply membrane, which is a PVC thing. And then there's a metal facing, which that's all bonded to. And my board that sits over these outriggers, the eaves that come out, is then going to get a membrane and a little bit of metal trim with a drip. That's a kind of folded aluminium thing. And the same membrane that's on the roof would then be taken up, and probably, not sure what I'm going to draw there, I would have probably taken that up now if I was going to do it and return it over the face. So jumping about again, back down to thinking about kind of other things. The video hasn't stopped. I've just stopped moving. You can kind of see me. There we go. And I'm maybe thinking about a wee sketch just to explain what my thought process was for these outriggers. And it's good to draw these things in 3D as well. They don't always make sense. The way that I'm thinking about this is taking a steel beam, and if you can imagine a steel beam cut diagonally, we can use a standard universal beam section, or UB as it's called, cut it diagonally, and we then get a very thin edge which we can expose. And if we cut it carefully, we can probably double them over, use the same piece twice for two of them. And this is a thing that you can use a standard section for, amend it and adapt it, and do a drawing of that, and your contractor will then go to a metal worker or a blacksmith and get this thing made up. So that's the thing that would give me my nice neat edge. And then the joist would sit over the decking board would sit over the top of it. There's a wee question mark there that I've drawn, thinking, well, I don't know how deep that is. Blinds are always quite confusing because obviously the larger the drop, the bigger the diameter of the blind, so trying to allow for it is quite difficult. So I'm thinking about what the use of this window is. There's no scale to it just now, and most windows need a kind of windowsill, and I'm obviously thinking about, well, this could be a useful thing. This could be something that people could sit at, or work at. Could become a kind of desk feature for someone to work at. So I'm kind of putting a hunchback guy in. Very awful drawing of a guy, actually. So it looks fed up. But the drawing's not tidy. You know, this is a sketch to be able to understand how various parts might go together, what you might need to do in order to prove your design. Now, this is enough for you to be able to say, well, I sort of know what all the bits are. Nothing's the right size. I mean, the guy's too small or the detail's too big, you know, but it doesn't matter. It's the order of materials, and it's the visual noting to try and kind of figure out what's in your brain, what you're trying to say with the detail. And this can be done for any detail. This can be done for interior details, furniture details, construction details, but it usually all starts with what do you want to achieve? What does it want to look like, and what's actually going to happen in it? So that's the kind of finished detail, and that would be enough to then take out and actually start looking at real sizes to try and figure out how you might go together. And it's usually only at this point that you would then start to try and draw it up properly. Okay, hopefully that was of some help to you. I'll try and draw something which I know a little bit about next time, rather than trying to talk about something that I drew 2 years ago, and work out a few little sketches. Okay.